Well, I think it's important because the reason I got started is because lots of introverts think that we're broken when really we're 30 to 50% of the US population. I don't know about Australia, but we're a big part of the global population, but a lot of us think that we're broken because so many times when we see people being social, we assume that they're an extrovert, and when we see people being successful, we assume that they're an extrovert.
G'day guys, this is Rob from A Life That Travels here at Social Media Marketing World in San Diego, and I'm with Thea Orozco, who has got a really interesting story that I thought would be amazing to share with you. Thea, who do you talk to and what do you do?
So I talk to introverts, and I'm a business coach for introverts, and basically if you don't know what an introvert is, they're not shy necessarily. So there's this misconception that introverts are shy, and actually they're two very different types of people. Not very different, but pretty different. So introverts get their energy by being alone, extroverts get their energy by being around other people. Whereas shy people, they are scared of judgment. So you can actually get extroverts who are shy and introverts who aren't shy. So I focus on introverts, whether they're shy or not shy.
Interesting. So this is like sometimes you hear, you see someone presenting on stage and they say, you might think that I'm an extrovert, but actually I'm an introvert. But it's actually this kind of, some people might just be shy, but also be able to get up on stage and present and put themselves forward.
Yeah, totally. So lots of people, I don't know if you know Guy Kawasaki.
Yeah,
he's
absolutely.
An introvert.
Wow.
Tons and tons of introverts, and they can be speakers, they can be YouTube stars. It's just about, what they do afterwards, whether they go party or whether they're home alone.
Nice. And so why is this important anyway?
Well, I think it's important because the reason I got started is because lots of introverts think that we're broken when really we're 30 to 50% of the US population. I don't know about Australia, but we're a big part of the global population, but a lot of us think that we're broken because so many times when we see people being social, we assume that they're an extrovert, and when we see people being successful, we assume that they're an extrovert. And that's not necessarily true.
And it's hard, isn't it? I mean, if you're in any kind of environment, whether it's here at a conference or at university, for example. So I talk a lot to university students. Hi guys. But when you're at uni and you see other people interacting in a way that's different to you, it's kind of like painful in some way, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. So, I've been at university too, and it is difficult. You see everybody like laughing and talking at a party, and you assume that it's natural to all of them, and that's actually not necessarily true. Some people have just learned how to interact in that environment, but still go home and recharge by themselves.
Nice. And so, from your experience, what are some of the easy things that like let's say you're a student, you're going to uni, and you struggle when you go to class or after class to interact, or you kind of feel like you're out of place. What would be a couple of the sort of simple tips that you might give them in terms of getting started? Because this is a process, right?
Totally, it's a big process.
And nothing wrong with that, right? Like absolutely nothing wrong.
No. So I think it's mainly a resiliency is what people need to work on, right? It's getting used to taking risks and being okay with failing, because failing is a big part of life if you want to kind of achieve more. So being okay with failing, because in order to win, you have to risk failing. And then just being able to bounce back after that. So that's a lot of what I teach, is kind of decreasing the amount of time where you're like, oh my God, I just failed. So that's part of what I do.
Isn't that fascinating? I've sort of heard a lot about this sort of topic lately. I really believe that too, and my passion is, people getting outside their comfort zones, particularly by going overseas, either to study or travel. But yeah, like you stuff up. But it's, in fact, when you look back, that's where you actually really learn stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So failing is the best way to learn.
The best way to learn, right? Yeah, and is there a way? I mean, I guess you probably do a whole bunch of work with people on shifting that mindset. But what's the starting point for people in terms of developing that resilience? Is it like getting a professional, like a professional coach like you do? Are there books that you can read?
So Brene Brown is a wonderful author. She has The Power of Vulnerability, if you want to read a book about just being vulnerable and resiliency. Another thing you can do, something I help my clients with, is one of our first steps is to make what's called a smile file.
Nice.
Which is, a real file, documents, or on your phone or whatever, and it's where you put your wins. So if you're feeling like, oh my God, I'm failing at everything, then you look at your smile file and you're reminded of the things that have gone good in your life. Like, okay, so I did get, an A in this class and I was expecting to fail or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that smile file. That's awesome. This whole sort of conversation around failure is so important because, I guess I see that in our businesses as, we try a lot of stuff. Yeah. Whether it's a Facebook ad or, a type of program that we're going to run or a different way that we handle our conversations with students. And like we constantly stuff up.
Yeah.
But it's like when you see something that you stuff up, that's actually when suddenly you're like, oh shit, we have to start this again. And you go back and you try again and you're like, oh, actually that little thing there actually worked. And the rest broke. and then you try something else and like another little piece of it worked.
Yeah.
And it's like that constant split testing of your, not just work or uni, but like life, right?
Yeah, totally.
That actually ends up leading you to something meaningful.
Yeah, totally. So, it's not just, 5 steps forward, it can be like 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
Always,
yeah. It always happens, but it's the forward movement that you need to keep your eye on.
Momentum. That's really interesting because forward movement's important. So in the work that you do, how important then is goal setting? Because you can go in many different directions, for example.
Yeah.
So how important do you think it is to have that kind of some sort of end goal in mind? Like, I'm going to go to a conference and just like grab a random stranger who, in fact, you grabbed me.
I did.
And we started chatting, and that's hard. So, in terms of setting that first goal to get somewhere, is that important?
It is important. So, some of my issues was that before I thought, when you had a goal, you had to stick with it. But that I've come to realize that's also part of like failure, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to switch, it's okay to pivot. And when you do that, you need to do it quickly because also part of my issue was that when I was pivoting, because I used to be a life coach and I transitioned to business coaching, that was really hard. Yeah. So I had to just say, at one point I had to bury my business cards to make that transition in my mind. So if you're going through that, if you're changing your major or whatever, just make the commitment.
That's a really good point. So can you define that word pivot for me? That's a really great word.
So pivot, mainly I hear it in the business world, but it's when you're going on one track and then you want to go on another. Yeah. So you're basically just going here and then you go in this other direction. So that's called a pivot.
Awesome. And like that happens. Tell me guys, right, that you haven't had this happen in your life at some point. Particularly at uni. Geez, like I did that at uni. I started my undergraduate degree. I was doing a science degree. And like halfway through, I thought, oh, I'm actually kind of interested in music. So I now I would call that a pivot. So I pivoted and then I sort of did like electronic music for a semester. And then that just didn't really work out. And so then I pivoted and did something else. Yeah. And I've still got a degree at the end of it. And I think what was amazing out of that was that I kind of learned all of these, and like I still have these interesting skills that came from doing a semester of electronic music. But some people might be afraid of that and think like, oh God, I have to change and I hate what I'm doing. And like I feel like I'm being drawn over here, but just they don't want to go there. What would you say to them?
I think also that's again part of fear of failure. Yeah. Right? Is your fear of like doing something wrong, and it's overthinking too. So overthinking can only get you so far, and to get you even further, you need to actually take action. Yeah. So as you found out, even though you took a semester of music, you found out it wasn't for you, and that wouldn't have happened if you didn't take that chance and took in those classes.
Yeah, and I think and on that music thing, like sometimes I now stumble across, like I've fallen into this love of video, and some of those skills that I learnt in my failed semester of doing music are actually relevant to me now. So I think life is long, and you just don't know what's coming at you, right? So
Definitely.
yeah, it all kind of adds up and can take you in interesting directions. Do you travel much?
I used to. I was born in California, raised in California, and then I spent 4 years in England.
That's very interesting. What took you over there?
My partner wanted to study there, so
Ah,
I
okay.
went along.
And then you decided that like rainy England, sunny California.
Yeah, it
Or
was,
is it more complicated?
it was complicated, but we did like it there. I didn't like the snow and the rain, but yeah, we like the people.
And what's coming up next for you then? So what are you working on? What are you interested in?
That's a good question. Well, I'm looking to grow my business even more. I've come to realize that I'm keeping myself small. So I'm looking to grow the business, just reach out to more people, do some more collaborations, because that's kind of grown my business in the past when I was doing life coaching, and I really need to do it on this business as well.
Nice. Cool. And where can people find you if they're interested in looking you up?
They can find me at Introvertology.com and Introvertology on most social networks.
That's kind of cool. Introvertology.
Yeah.
It's like a science. It's kind of true though, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Last question then. What, you've obviously been working in this space for a while. Have you discovered something which you find is surprising about this topic?
About introversion?
Yeah, about introversion. And you're like, you know what, people might not have thought of that before.
That's a good question. Well, I mean, the main takeaway that I've been trying to give people over the past 4 years is that you're not broken.
Yeah.
But I think that the big thing that I've learned is just how many people are introverts, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about Guy Kawasaki. I don't know if you guys have heard of Marie Forleo, but she's a big online person. And
She's huge here in America. Yeah, in fact, I hadn't heard of her, and then I came here and someone said Marie Forleo, and I said, who's that? And then you look her up and she's like, wow, massive.
Yeah, actually the talk we just saw mentioned her. She's an introvert, so really, like, there's just so many of us. You can't really, it's hard to know when someone's an introvert or an extrovert. So just assume that people are like you is kind of my big tip.
Actually, and I want to ask you about that. So for those people, that just gave me an interesting question. Those people that are extroverts, what advice do you give to them for the way that they might interact with people that are introverts? Once they kind of find out that, like, because there's nothing wrong with this, right? It's just normal. We're humans, and somebody admits, like, oh yeah, I'm really uncomfortable in this situation. If you're an extrovert, what do you do?
Well, so the main issue, I think, when introverts interact with extroverts, is that extroverts tend to think while they talk, and introverts tend to think and then talk. So while if you're an introvert talking to an extrovert, you just need to hang in there, let them talk to you for a while. If you're an extrovert talking to an introvert, you just need to, wait while they gather their thoughts.
And is that kind of thing, I guess, yeah, like, you kind of have a conversation, you met someone with for the first time, and you're like, oh, they don't have terribly much to say. And that's that just disconnection between introversion and extroversion, isn't it?
Yeah,
That you actually need to give somebody a chance to get across that gap and start to build a relationship together. Yeah. And you can end up with amazing friendships. So, great thing. It's so nice to meet you, Thea. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Yeah, this is great.
And guys, links will be down below where you can find Thea. And I will see you next time on Life That Travels. Bye.